might soon jack up their charges following a recent approval of 50% increase in telecom service tariffs. AMMBAN, and that's the Association of Mobile Money and Bank Agents in Nigeria, says the tariff hike will hit their members hard since their operations rely heavily on telecom services like data. The association's PR person, Ogungbayi Ganiyu, stated that the push, and of course this move rather, could push service charges up for Nigerians who patronize point-of-sale operators as a source of cash.
Well, meanwhile, NATCOMS, which is the National Association of Telecom Subscribers, is not accepting this upward review, and they have promised to take the federal government to court, calling the hike a huge no, which is like NO for Nigerians who are already struggling with fuel and electricity price hikes. The Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, approved this 50% increase after the Association of Licensed Telecom Operators of Nigeria, ALTON, and the Association of Telecommunication Companies of Nigeria, ATCON, requested for an upward review of pricing following an 11-year fixed price. What we do have joining us to discuss this is policy analyst Charles Asiegbu. He joins us live, especially via a video conferencing. Thank you so much, Charles, for being here. Let's quickly look at what the situation truly is. We've all accepted that one way or the other, the federal government has told us that whether we like it or not, given very clear reasons that there will be an increase. So everyone needs to brace up. Can you tell us if this increase is coming, one, at the right time, and looking at the policies beneath it, do you think it is something that could have been overlooked and possibly there would have been a pre-plan before execution?
Thank you very much. I think one thing is that they have the need to taking some bold policies. This is a conversation, but one thing we must take to is the fact that the government has consistently.
Well, we seem to have a little network connectivity issue there. We can't really hear you, Charles, and hopefully we hope you get to join us again so we can continue this conversation. But then again, it's all about the increase and what it will do, the impact it would have on every single Nigerian. Well, don't forget that if you were indeed purchasing data for a particular price, take for instance, there is 500 Naira data, which gives you 2 gigabytes that you can use for 1 day. By 50%, it means that 500 Naira would increase by 50%, which if you put it together, it's going to be 250 Naira. So it means you'll be buying that same 2 gigabyte for 1 day, which was formerly 500 Naira. It will be going for about 750 Naira. Of course, we've seen differences in terms of what the cost would be for those who are very, very adept in using their data, making calls, and so on and so forth. Some have said that this would impact heavily on the cost of living. We've also seen how it's going to impact on the POS operators. And by the way, don't forget, with the new CBN rule, you know, mobile banking and so on and so forth has indeed also seen a little addition in terms of cost that would go to the pockets of those who use these applications. Take, for instance, one of the fastest growing microfinance bank. Before, when you make a transfer of about 20,000 Naira, either to someone or maybe pushing that money into your account, what you get absolutely would remain the same amount. But these, but with the current CBN review and policies, if you make such amount into that account, what will happen is you would actually to take away about 50 Naira, so you'd be left with about 19,950. But let's see, we'll have our guest here. We're talking about the policy and the timing, if it's right, looking at the current situation of Nigerians. So Charles, thanks for making it back again. Let's see if you can go ahead with your comments.
Yes, I apologize for that break in transmission.
It's fine.
I was just saying that the government has continued to show that they have the willpower to move the needle, you know, to take very impressive, bold policy steps. Whether these policy steps are effective or are relevant is another conversation. But what we must take note is that the government has been unable to, conduct pulse check, to be innovative in taking these steps, and, has been unable to engage the people and ensure that they take ownership of some of these policy efforts. So to understand the telecom's tariff hike, it's important to note that there are three buckets of stakeholders. One is the operators, the second is the government, and then the people. For the operators, they argue that they have, continued, they are still pushing for this hike since over 10 or 11 years. And they cited several reasons like rising energy costs, the inflation, currency devaluation, food inflation, and all these things. For inflation, we already know that it is up there, 33, 34% up there. Food inflation, I can realistically tell you that it is about 100% these days. And they argue that, that they have become the palliative of the economy. And another key argument that they have made was that it is very, very expensive to maintain the sector, and for them to continue to offer very efficient services. It is important that they are able to charge what is required to sustain their equipment and facilities, and also give customers the satisfaction that they need. So I think they have made a very clear case on why this should happen. But the government has come to say, okay, look, we are pegging this hike at 50%, even though the operators are asking for 100%. I do not think that a 50% is the way to go, given the current circumstances. In Egypt last year, they had a similar issue, and what they introduced was like a 10 to 15% hike increase to, test the waters and continue to engage the people. And then, in phased approaches, they can increase as time comes. But the government, is making the argument that they have done Nigerians a favor by not increasing it by 100% and increasing it radically to 50%. I think that is insensitive. I think that the government has continuously, acted in such a manner that it looks as though that they are the ones leading themselves. So if it is people-centric, the government would have continued to engage the people and adopted a strategy where they are increasing it gradually. One argument is that we don't currently know why the government has chosen to increase it at this point, since renewed request for increase started about mid last year. But it could be that the government has, is allowing us settle in or adjust, because we are chronic adjusters. They're allowing us settle into new reform efforts that are, that has continued to plunder us into poverty. And then after a period of time, they look at another set of policy that they know. Of course, Nigerians are adjusters and they have absorbed it.
Yep.
They are not ahead to introduce something else. So I don't think it's the right step to take at this point, given the current realities.
There's that very strong argument that is insensitive because of inflation, and the current economic realities for Nigerians. Even SERAP is asking that they do a reversal. But do you see any sense in the appeal by the telecoms companies themselves? Their argument, of course, that in 13 years they haven't had any significant increment in these rates. The cost of operation, for companies across Nigeria, has increased significantly. They say that they've, received or seen about a 300%, increase in operational cost. And so, is it something that you can find, some understanding with? That if it used to cost these telecom companies $1 billion, before, now it's costing them $3 billion, to run this, one thing or the other. But, they're pretty much still earning the same things from their businesses. So is this something you would understand?
Yeah. Like, my first argument was that, they have a very good and clear, focus on why this tariff should be increased. Because, yes, it's very expensive to operate in that sector. And given the competition and the required people like, so for example, if for a full day, if they're on MTN is or any of all of these operators is unable to provide the data service, for example, it means the economy is going to suffer for it. If people are not able to use WhatsApp, use Facebook, and all of that because the data is down or the systems are down, it's going to affect the economy, tremendously. So it is important that they are able to charge and maintain their systems and provide the needed service to drive the economy. The argument is clear, and I agree that it is good, but the problem has been the government's ability to effectively manage both the operators and the people. The government has argued that they say it is in their role to ensure that consumer protection is alive, and also ensure that businesses or investors are able to make profit. It's in their hand, but it's the management of the process that is a problem. If you say you want to increase it, on what grounds are you increasing it now? Have you extensively engaged the stakeholders? Of course, we have seen what NATCOM has come to say, that there was no agreement, they did not agree to it, and the government has gone ahead to release a memo to say, okay, look, we have approved this thing. But NATCOM is saying you did not consult us extensively, we did not agree that this should continue, and now they are threatening a legal action because they have seen that if food inflation, for example, is 100% because of the increment, on devaluation of naira and increment in the petrol prices, with the increment of Telecom's tariff right now, they are predicting that there will be a jack-up across board. Commodities will skyrocket. Yeah, if food inflation is 100%, they are predicting that it will be about 120 or thereabout. So that is the problem, because the government has, like I said, is showing willpower, but it's not showing innovation, in solving some of the problems that we are facing. If you feel it is long overdue because it's over 13 years, why are you doing it now? What is the yardstick? And if you're doing it now, how are you, providing measures to ensure that, one, that the people are carried along effectively and they understand why you're doing what you're doing, and what are you providing to ensure that, there's some of cushion, for the people to be able to absorb this increase and live their lives well. People are passing through a lot, and, you keep bringing all of these policies that make it look like, you're leading yourself and you're not leading the people. The validation of governance is, that the people have, or the people is backing those that are leading them. That's what validates governance. So whatever policies you make, if you have strong willpower and the people are saying something else and you're not doing POS checks and you're not carrying them along, I feel, that kind of invalidates your authority as government.
Mr. Asiegbu, so what do you think would have been done first? I'm asking that question because, one, let's also cut the telcos some slack, because there is rising cost in terms of softwares. We do understand that these softwares need to be upgraded, updated. The salaries of the staff that work in different departments of these telco companies, be it the technicians, engineers, and so on, can no longer remain the same. Looking at the fact that Nigeria's current exchange rate, FX with dollar naira, we see where it's going to. So where they're going to get the money from. There's also wanton destruction of, when you talk about the mast, telco mast, we've seen what's going on in the north. They have to battle with fixing these things, and you have to sometimes go with security operatives and so on. So I'd like you to look at the broader aspect of, and feel the pain, as it were, of these telco companies. And what do you think could actually be the only way to ensure that, even if tariffs should be reviewed upward, it should be able to at least cater to the current concerns, while Nigerians would not be left bearing the entire burden? Are we looking at maybe subsidizing? Is that an option? And what do you think?
Yes, so I think, if the telcos are passing through what they are passing through right now, the government should be able to, give them some, tax breaks or something just to encourage them, while they figure out how they want to, push forward this initiative or this policy, and then get the people to subscribe to it and then go ahead to implement it. Pushing out policies are good, like I said, but what is important is how you're able to manage the situation. We have seen what happened during the fuel subsidy removal and, the back and forth between citizens and the government and the marketers. We saw, a situation whereby the government did not have a clear plan on how to help people move along. For a long time, even up to this moment, transportation has remained a problem. So let's say people have, abandoned their cars to say, okay, let's even be using public transport. Using Abuja as an example, you can see that the transportation system is not there yet, and it will take a lot of time for the government to put the required infrastructure. And that's why I said that innovation is not there, that proper engagement is not there, for the people to say, okay, this is why the government is doing this, and we have seen their effort to providing alternatives that we can adopt for the meantime, relevant alternatives that will help us cushion the effect. Telcos have to survive, they have to pay staff, they have to increase salaries just to meet up with the current realities. But the government has, the government is also, is interested in taxing, increasing tax and collecting, generating revenue, If a good way would have been to say, okay, look, guys, we know you're passing through this problem. We want to give you tax breaks. We want to give you some incentives or provide, the atmosphere for you to thrive in these hard times as operators. And then we can go ahead to now review how we want to, hike the tariff. And like you asked, I think a good way would have been to put it in phased, have a phased approach towards it. Starting from like 10% or 15% to like another 10%, gradually just increase it while also engaging the people, while also providing, relevant alternatives and ensuring that, previous policy efforts are yielding the kind of economic growth and progress we want to see, and that people are stabilizing. That way, it is as, people will understand that the government is thinking about them first before any other thing else. But as it is like, the government is interested in generating revenue to run the government. And then, the very painful thing about it is that you see bogus budgets for irrelevant, luxurious goods that the government officials are living on. So it doesn't just make sense. This is not the right time.
All right. Anyway, I want to say thank you so much, Charles Asiegbu, for joining us. And thanks for shedding light. I think, truthfully, if we look at it very carefully, there could be a balance and possibly raising it by in bits. That's possibly 10%, 15%, and see how testing the waters it would look like on the economy and Nigerians would be a fair deal. Thanks for joining us and shedding light on the policies that could actually be followed, especially on this topic. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.